Now I was doing that week of Proud Calvin
Indeed.
Dear Diary. I was getting inboxes all the time. Like, Pastor, but shouldn't we be talking about the three angels' messages? Shouldn't we be talking about this and that? Like, why are we talking about Dear Daddy, I'm horny?
Sure.
But people are experiencing those things.
There is an agenda to commercialize worship.
Very different. And these are some of the things that have taught me that I think sometimes as Adventists, as Christians, some of the things that we hold on to thinking that, this is what really makes me an Adventist.
In Africa.
Yeah, you'll find that it doesn't apply everywhere.
Hello everybody, you know what time it is. It is the Advent Pod SA and I am Kagano Sedupane, your host. This is The Journey and we are going to take a journey with a very, very special guest. I'm glad he's here in the country. You'll understand why. My brother, how are you?
My man, doing well. Thank you for having me here. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
Like the last time we connected was way back in the day.
Man,
So
back in the
glad
day.
that we've been able to reconnect.
Surely.
Looking forward to the discussion for sure.
Could you introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, so to everyone, my name is Tshepo Mateja. I'm born and bred South Africa, but I've had a journey that has taken me, in various parts of the world at this point. I actually started in Zimbabwe. That's where I was for my high school. So Lucy, I did my high school there, but originally from Polokwane, Limpopo, small town there, village called East Leban. And then I grew up in Durban, where I did my primary school there. And then following that is where I went to Zimbabwe to do my high school at Solusi. Which followed Helderberg.
Yes.
And and so forth and so forth. So we'll talk about that as we continue.
Interesting.
But just a person who enjoys these types of discussions, connecting with people.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm excited that this is happening.
This is good. No, I'm happy. I'm happy to have you here. And I think one of the things that I've really wanted to have a conversation around, people who have experienced Adventist education in a way, right? And you and I kind of share that experience. Because I think there's something to be said about the culture, the holistic nature of the education and things like that. Maybe, though, let's start with the situation around how you see these mixes rather of experiences, how they've shaped you, because you're moving from country to country, studying in several places. Maybe take us through the journey. How did the first, let's say high school, because that's really where you start, experiencing who you are.
Right.
High school and then Cape Town.
Right. So it's a lifelong story, I would say, because it started, I think by age 11, 12, I already knew that I wanted to be a pastor.
Wow.
So I already told myself that already by Children's Ministries Day, it would be kind of well known that this guy was going to be our preacher for the day.
Oh.
I was already called pastor even from way back when I was still young, and I don't know where that came from. So, and maybe that's what the influence was. Maybe always hearing that as I was growing up, ingrained it in my mind that, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
So by 12, it was already settled. And so I made the choice to go to Zimbabwe and to Lucy Adventist High School, specifically for that reason.
Okay.
I want to prepare myself for this decision that I feel like I've already made. 2008, I went to start, it's Form 1, when you're in high school, that side. So I started there. Challenging time. I feel like that needs its own podcast on its own, just to unpack everything that happened there. But I finished that and then I started at Helderberg in 2012. This is now in Somerset West.
Yes.
And then, I did that for 4 years. I did very well. I think I was seen as part of the leadership even towards the end of my stay there as a senior.
Yeah, he led us, guys.
Which then, after that, like a week after graduating, I was in South Korea, in Seoul.
Sure.
I worked there for an organization called the Seventh-day Adventist Language School, Language Institute, where basically it's teaching English to local Korean people who want to study English as a second language. But also it has a missionary component to it where you get to teach Bible classes and just like Bible study for people who may be curious and wanting to know more just about God and things like that, with the aim of having them be more part of the church, of course. So I did that for a year. And by the time I was doing that, I knew that I wanted to progress my studies in theology
Yes.
at Andrews University specifically. So God gave me the strength to be able to somehow do that. And yeah, 2017 now, I was in Berrien Springs, Michigan, where I was at Andrews University. I was doing my master's there in divinity. So I did that program. It's a 2.5-year program. I did it for a year. And after that, I think I wanted to change my course in terms of where I was going in my career and in my education. So I enrolled for another master's degree called Community and International Development, because I think by then my scope of how I wanted my ministry to unfold had gone beyond church spaces. I wanted now to be more community focused, broader lens in terms of where I wanted my impact to be. So I studied that program. And then after that, I started working, of course, in the US up until this year, which is when I moved back. So it was in total from 2008 to 2025. I don't know how many years that is, but that's the journey that's been there. And Adventist education has been a central component
of that
in all of those stages that I was going through.
No, interesting that you mentioned that you kind of led kind of a mission-driven life throughout all of this, because I'm seeing you going to teach English in Korea. That's mission-focused. By the way, guys, his cell phone number is still Korean.
On WhatsApp.
On WhatsApp, yeah. So something that stands out to me as part of your journey, and I know you've always been a person who, you love going out, and reaching out and spreading the word. So how different is it then? In terms of the cultural dynamics there, how do you spread the word in South Korea versus Berrien Springs, for example?
It's very different, and these are some of the things that have taught me that I think sometimes as Adventists, as Christians, some of the things that we hold on to, thinking that this is what really makes me an Adventist
in Africa.
Yeah, you'll find that it doesn't apply everywhere, and those things sometimes it can be confusing, because now you're thinking, okay, are they not Adventist enough? Or am I too Adventist? Like, why is it that I'm holding on to these practices, to these ways of being, ways of doing things, that where as soon as you step out into another Adventist context, it's almost like this doesn't exist. It doesn't resonate here.
And you are quoted to once have said, if you guys see me not wearing a tie, all I have to say to you is grow up. Look, I don't know what you want to say about that, but you're speaking to this point, right? Where somehow it has been culturalized to say if you're an African preacher, you must always have a tie and a jacket on or something like that.
Right, and I've questioned where is that coming from? Because if you look in our history, in our culture, that's not been an inherent part of our dress code.
Indeed.
It's definitely something that we can all agree that it was borrowed from the West.
Indeed.
Which now the ironic thing is that when you go that side, and you see the preachers there, none of them are doing that anymore. Ooh. If you look at the youth pastors there, preaching in T-shirts with graphics on them. So it's like, it really makes you question that what is the essence of what we're doing, of our faith? Is it really just like the external look of things? Or is there something deeper that we need to be tapping into that crashes all these other things that we hold on to as anchors of our faith? Almost. So it really got me thinking and questioning a lot of those things as I was in all these different spaces.
And look, I understand you, because the beautiful part about it is your foundation was quite solid. I mean, you grew up with Adventist education. You know what it means essentially to be an Adventist. So these other cosmetic issues really won't necessarily make you deviate from the truth, as it were. Right? So if you go to other cultures, you will still remain Adventist, even though you apply cultural norms and practices of those places, which have nothing to do with truth per se. They just have to do with, the topical application of things. So I think I appreciate that. So what have you seen, maybe just for the fun of it, what have you seen that kind of shocked you as well? Maybe, is there anything that shocked you in any of these places?
You see, surprisingly not. So Lucy, right? Is now in Zimbabwe.
Strict.
Very strict. Very, very strict. Super conservative. And so that was like my basically introduction into Adventist education. Now you go into Korea, it's more sparse. Like there's not really a lot of Adventist activity happening. Likewise in the US as well. I think what made it maybe even better there is because I was at a campus. So Andrews University campus has upward of 5+ churches within the same campus. I'm just like slightly outside of campus. So there's a lot of activity happening there. But in the country in general, there is a decline in terms of participation, especially from youth. The surprising thing that I saw is that when I was at Andrews, I used to go to the youth church that was like more catered to urban African American audience. But I noticed that when other African people would go to the church, they couldn't do it because it was so different. Now they were talking live band, loud drums, you know, gospel singing, you know,
lighting
it's still
all over the
Adventist, lighting, everything. And then there's the Pioneer Memorial Church, which I know is maybe more famous through Hope Channel and other spaces. That one is more closer to, I guess, what we're used to in terms of soft piano, organ and all that. So that's where Africans would normally go. But that side, that is where it's the white people's church, so to speak. But the black people's church there wasn't necessarily one that fit with the black people from this side. So that was an interesting dynamic that I would see. But all of these things as well, they really just make you realize that God is dynamic.
Indeed.
You know, God is not one who just works a certain way. God reaches people of all different histories, backgrounds, identities, cultures. And I believe that he accepts that worship. I don't think that he accepts just one form of worship over another. I don't think he prefers one form of worship over another. And this is where I think you touched on it as well. It becomes important to really know who you are as a person. And to be true to that, even in your worship of God, to worship in truth and in spirit. And not always have to borrow from other people's perspectives or ways of doing things.
No, I think that's very interesting. And I think what I now want to tap into is there's this idea that at least maybe most of us grew up with, that the American dream is a thing, right? At which point did you either see it as a thing or see that it's not actually a thing?
I think it was more the latter. Where I started to see it more as a marketing kind of like tagline, if I were to use that word, where it's like, no, people are having the same types of, okay, fine, it's a different place, it's in the West, different culture, but the issues are still the same. People are struggling with day-to-day things, employment, meeting financial obligations, you know, same social issues around dating, around friends, family. So there wasn't really a time or a place where I saw that, you know, this is what the American dream is. Or I think that usually, for me at least, refers to just a very small minority of people who have been able to accumulate an insane amount of wealth and can actually do a lot of things. But that is not the reality of most Americans, strange enough. I think they have the similar struggles as what people here do. And I think that what that also taught me was, you know, living the dream is not a matter of location. It's not being in America, it's not being in Europe, it's not being, you know, somewhere abroad. It's more of a state of mind. People are succeeding everywhere. We see
true.
People are succeeding here in South Africa. I go to Zimbabwe quite frequently, and I'm often surprised about the amount of wealth I see people having there, like ownership, not just opulence that's on the outside, but people owning
the
land,
means of production as well.
The means of production. And I'm like, it happens everywhere. People can succeed everywhere, and it's not just something. I think America did well in terms of marketing it as a place where you can do that. But even now, if you look at what's happening there, you wonder how much. I mean, I was just seeing yesterday, it was like 7 million people protesting because prices are going up. You know, the country's falling apart. And so that's where you see that it really is more than just a location that brings the success. they're looking for.
Speaking about locations, we're recording here at the Mthondo Wethusi studios. And if you want to shoot your podcast, please make sure that you come to the studio because it's amazing.
Very
we look
nice
amazing.
Space, very nice space, yeah.
And our brother has been so gracious to have us in the studio. We debuted it in our last episode, so please go check that one out. And if you have any inquiries, they will be linked down below. Make sure that you go there and check it out. So continuing now with the conversation, we understand that, you know, as Christians, going back to that Christian chat, we sometimes pray these polished prayers, my pastor, you know. We pray the polished prayers of, Lord, if it is your will, yeah, you know, make it. We never usually tap into those prayers of, I am angry at you.
Yeah.
I'm actually mad.
Right.
Or I don't know where these desires come from. Why are you giving me these desires? I didn't ask for them.
Yeah.
You know, we never pray in those tones. Maybe take us theologically as to why we are like this as human beings in relation to God.
Certain things are, like just being frank, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to face certain realities about ourselves, about who we are as people, about our bodies.
Yeah.
So it often becomes easier to pretend as if those things are not there. I think a lot of times we talk about, keep yourself busy. So we distract ourselves with other things that we feel are of more importance or pertinent nature in terms of just what we should be entertaining. So we run away from things that really do affect us daily in our lives and things that we should be talking about. And I think it becomes then a pattern of just like, okay, from generation to generation, we don't talk about these things until they become taboo, until it becomes almost wrong to talk about them. I remember when I was doing that Week of Proud Calvin Dear Diary, I was getting inboxes all the time. Like, Pastor, but shouldn't we be talking about the three angels' messages? Shouldn't we be talking about this and that? Like, why are we talking about Dear Daddy, I'm horny?
Sure.
But people are experiencing those things.
Yes.
I want to say even the people who read the three angels' messages feel that as well. And at some point, we need to not run and embrace that it's part of our humanity. I believe that even when Jesus was here, if the word is saying that, you know, he was, and just as
afflicted.
he was tempted in every way that we were and still without sin.
Yeah.
I want to believe that those were some of the temptations he faced as well.
True.
And so at some point we do need to actually stop and look at each other, look at ourselves, and see how we can have healthy, productive dialogue around those topics. I believe that that's how the church becomes now relevant, not just within the church itself, but within the socio-economic context in which it's within, where people, even outside, can tap into what this church is saying, because there's fruitful, productive conversations here happening, not just about, you know, sexual immorality and things, but about gender-based violence, about mental health, about entrepreneurship, about, you know, youth unemployment. The church should be the hub in which, you know, the greater society sees all of those topics being addressed and being robustly, you know, talked about.
And I think what I like about you, and this I'm not saying just because I know you, I mean, you're a very raw preacher. I mean, you don't try to run away from the issues, you know. And when I watched that series or Week of Prayer, I think 6 years ago, I think I was still in high school at the time, and I watched it online, and I was like, oh, this is the realest preaching I've ever heard in my entire life, because until that point, nobody could just come out and say, hey, let's talk about youth being horny. Let's talk about it. But I think I appreciate that now you as a young pastor, obviously now there's that dynamic that you're also in a space where people are like maybe worried about you because you're young and you're tackling these kinds of topics as well. Like, how does it play into maybe them saying it might be career limiting or things like that? You know how people might phrase these things. How have you dealt with that?
At some point, right? Because, and I'm gonna maybe talk about my family a bit here. So, like, for example, it wasn't really something we talked about. Like, sexuality was not really something that was part of the discussion at home. And that's not a judgment on my parents or anything. It's just the way it was. And so at some point, you need to kind of get real with that it's not coming from the adults. It needs to come from somewhere. It needs to start somewhere. And then the good thing is that yeah, I could go now have that conversation with my friends outside of the church spaces. I could go somewhere else and have those conversations.
Yes.
And then I might end up even deviating way more than I should be. But
Yeah.
the church becomes that safe container in which there are layers of accountability that, yeah, if the conversation is going off,
Yeah.
even as a young pastor, there are people who will be like, okay, let's
Curtail
guide you
it a
towards,
bit.
yeah, let's do this. And so you just lean into that. You lean
Yeah.
into the trust of the accountability that the church space can provide.
Yeah.
And you dive in. You dive in and see, okay, how far can we go in terms of actually discussing these topics in a responsible way, trusting that, if in my inexperience I am erring, there are going to be accountability layers in which which will safeguard me and also make sure that people who are listening, we speak a lot about the weaker brethren and things like that, they are also affected in a positive way by the nature of conversations and dialogue.
Sure, which is good. And I think you've mastered that quite well with, your conversations. Yeah. No, happy with that. I think what we can look into now that we've been talking about the youth, which is our passion here on the Advent Pod SA. By the way, please subscribe.
Yeah.
Thanks.
They're important. They're important.
What do you think, based on the places you've seen, right? You've probably seen the different things youth go through, in these different spaces. What are you seeing as a maybe a pattern or a trend these days? You spoke about the US being a little bit anti-religious in a way, growing, a little bit less interested in God, perhaps. And what have you seen? What is some of the reasons for that?
Yeah, I don't have the actual statistics for this, but I heard commentary that the trajectory in which the Adventist Church is moving, if you look at the Americas, North America, if you look at Europe, is that within 50 years or so, there won't be Adventism anymore in those spaces, like especially in Europe. Like it's just quickly disappearing because the youth are just not involved in it anymore. There's if you go to the churches, elderly people, you get really nice chapels, big, but you find 5-10 people and it's gray hairs only. There's no young people. And I think that's indicative of how much the church sometimes has not put in the forefront the issues that impact its biggest constituency, which is the youth.
Yeah.
And so when we are not addressing the topics that are relevant and pertinent to the youth, the people who will continue, the church moving forward in terms of leadership, then people find different spaces in which the things that they care deeply about, like sustainability, professional.
Yeah.
We are not talking about climate change in our churches, but yet we continue to see the effects that it's having in our world. People will find different spaces to which they can tackle those issues. If we're not talking about in a constructive way, sexuality decides, don't do this, don't do that. But like, okay, but what do we need to do?
Yeah.
People find, and there's no shortage now of spaces where people can tap into to get resources that they need. People need jobs. The youth is, the country is suffering with youth unemployment. If the church is not positioning itself as a vehicle to curb that issue for its members, for the community, then people will find different spaces in which they can do that. And so it's a trend that I'm seeing in all the spaces that I've been, really, in Asia, in North America, here. I don't know how much now here in Africa in the last 10 years, but the youth are more and more becoming awake to just their social realities. And there's a lot more agency in terms of people wanting to take things into their own hands to fix the issues that they're dealing with. I was just reading, I think you'll know that in Madagascar, there's been some protests happening there, led by Gen Z youth, and they were successful in being able to overcome what the president there was able to do. And that inspires youth across the world as well, because in our age of social media now, things go viral, things are shared everywhere. I think the similar thing happened in Kenya, I think earlier this year or some months ago. So we live now in a pattern where youth are not afraid to tackle their own issues if they don't feel like they're being represented in the relevant spaces. And so the church in Africa runs a risk of suffering that same fate if it continues to turn a blind eye on issues that are really important to the biggest part of the membership, which is the youth.
Yeah, and usually the answer you would get is, no, just be heavenly minded. Yeah, just, focus on going to heaven. Forget about this world. But I don't think that's the core of theology or what the gospel means, right? I think you you make an interesting point when you say the fact that the church is kind of or probably turning a blind eye. I don't know what it is, right? There's an argument that brother of mine there has with me sometimes. He's like, is it either that the youth are not participating because they are bored, or they are not participating because they are maybe not involved in structures of decision making? So there's those two elements to say, if we have young people represented enough in leadership where they can effect change, because there's another thing where you're just in leadership for the sake of numbers. And then there's also the situation where now that we have representatives in leadership, are these ones willing to become excited?
Right. It's probably the truth is somewhere probably in the middle of those things. I think that, there is a loss of engagement, right, from the youth, maybe a loss of activity. And even the activity that's there, how meaningful is it? I think that there is a lot of activity. I see a lot of
congresses.
I see concerts happening all the time. I see, all these music things, like things that really make people excited.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, how far do those things take us? Like, should we be thinking more creatively in terms of how we're convening as a youth in the church? Like, why can't we have more entrepreneurial, convenings where now we're talking business? Like, how can we support each other as young people who are doing startups, who are interested in tech, women who might be interested in getting into industries that are male dominated? How can we be bridging those gaps? But I feel like a lot of times as youth, our energy has been expended on things that really don't build as much as we have the potential to. We have really amazing people in all of our churches where they are young people who are doing great things in their careers. But how much are we leveraging that? I have sometimes sensed that the church programming is very extractive in terms of just like wanting people's financial resources.
We've talked about this.
And but then how much is it giving back to people? People are not able to go to school, but they're giving tithe, they're giving offerings, but they can't afford school fees to go into Adventist schools. What is it that the church is doing to ensure that no Adventist youth is not able to attend school?
Indeed.
The church has the capacity to do that, but I feel that sometimes prioritization is maybe not where it needs to be. And if not, if the church really does not have the resources or capacity to be tackling those issues, what can we do to build that? Because there's enough brain power, there's enough energy for us to be able to be figuring out some of these things.
No, that's true. And I think now I'm going to ask you a dangerous question because this is podcasting.
It wouldn't be, right?
It wouldn't be for otherwise. Do you believe or do you think that there is something that we can classify as church capture?
Church capture. Can you tell me how you define that?
Okay, so I'll tell you. I have a theory.
Yeah.
It's not proven. That to some level, the church is influenced by a select few people or individuals somewhere pulling strings. For example, there is a person, a human being, who designed the tithing model. It's a human being. Yeah. That's not like a divine inspiration model. Right. It's a business model. At the very least, it's just extracted from the Bible. But it's a business model. Okay, so there's that aspect. The second aspect is you have a situation today, which I'm going to say it's very dangerous that I say this actually. But we have to talk about these things.
Yeah, we need to.
Where I was an exec for Vitsdasm at some point. Yeah. And there was a phenomenon that I heard of called Woolworths pastors. Great. Now this is getting interesting. Yeah. So the definition of a Woolworths pastor is a pastor who, if you have a small budget, you won't afford to bring them to your church or whatever the case might be. So this means that these are pastors who, it's not to say they've gone rogue, because the idea is if the pastor is gainfully employed, they would not need to be overly compensated for events that they should be participating in anyway.
Right.
So that's one portion of it. So we have this phenomenon called Woolworths pastors. We see them now. All right. Tied to that is this idea that there are individual members who play a huge role in sponsoring the lifestyle of some pastors, which weakens the efficacy of the gospel.
Okay.
In this way.
There's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot. Remember, this is just my observation, right? And then what then happens is you have, in some quarters, a politicization of the gospel to one direction, because the country might be polarized in a certain way. And so those who have the means capture the pastors to polarize the nation in a certain agenda.
Sure.
Exactly. I'm not talking theory. Then there's the other layer where the underworld is involved. Now, you know, we have the corruption case that's going on with the police here in South Africa, right? Where I believe, right, there are maybe let me say, there are people who use Adventists to launder.
Wow.
Ne? And that comes through in very, very extravagant events, and you can't identify how this happened. It just does not make sense.
Why do I feel like we need to be making more use of the word allegedly?
Allegedly, yes. That's
I'm not a law expert,
no,
but I know
you're very right.
things come up.
I'm not mentioning any names. I'm not mentioning any names. You can come for me if you want, but you can see these things also. We have extravagant spend sometimes, where you can't pinpoint how this came to be. Yes, I understand there are people who are benevolent. I get that.
Yeah.
But then there's a benevolence that looks like somebody is running away here. Somebody is just saying, hey, let me make the church, because it's a non-profit kind of organization. Right. Let me just make the church hold this cash. Me, I'm gonna bounce. Okay. So these are allegations.
Sure.
I have allegations of this nature into church capture. I plan to make a forum that looks like a commission, a mock commission, where we discuss these things, where I bring you, for example, to say, what have you witnessed in the church? Let's assess your evidence.
That'll be so interesting. That's wow.
And you know what the goal of this would be? It would be, to what extent does this form of low-key corruption weaken the efficacy of the prophetic message of the church?
Yeah. You've given me a huge bomb in my hands here, and I don't know if I feel like if I hold it too long, it's going to explode with me as well.
Yeah. You must also say allegedly in your responses.
I will own my limitations in understanding the landscape right now, especially in South Africa, South African Adventism, because I'm two months back now, after 9 years away. So I think I am in the peripheries of the things that are happening as it relates to those types of issues. But one thing I know is that there is always a danger when the concentration of power seems to be disproportionate to just like the greater membership.
Yeah.
Like I get nervous anytime, not just in church, where power is only concentrated in the hands of you or a clique that is made up of a few, because how much can those individuals truly represent the magnitude of membership, of perspectives, of views? I'm of the opinion that power should always be horizontally distributed to where there isn't really people who are above the other. I don't think that the church really can afford to be having extravagant events when some of our church members are still worshiping in schools, under trees. I think that there needs to be greater effort into making sure that there's equity within the church. That people are able to access church I believe that church programming should be as accessible as possible. I don't believe, because now when I look at the amount of programs that happen almost every week, every month,
you need to be
and
a
I
millionaire.
calculate how much you need to pay in order to participate. And I say this as someone who also growing up, and I talk about this sometimes even with some of my friends, that we'd get sad sometimes when we see people our age going to certain programs that our families just couldn't afford to take us there. And we wish we could be there, to be with our friends as well.
Yeah.
And so, and this is what I appreciated about Solusi as a school, is that when you're there, you couldn't tell who came from a rich family or who did, because we always wear a school uniform. There was never a time where you wear your own clothes. The girls had to shave their heads.
What?
All of them.
Really?
Everyone there had to shave their heads. So, like, when it comes to just like everyone being equal,
you must be the
that was
same.
the place. And
Wow.
but there were people there whose dads were ministers. Their dads were, very affluent, and that also eliminates, I think, within the church structure where there's now there's this appearance of apparent Woolworths pastors. I'm for equity. That things need to be distributed as fairly and as equally as possible. But at the same time, these things are often simple. A friend of mine used to say that organizations are simple until you put human beings in them, and we need to remember that within our church structures, it's human beings.
Indeed.
And human beings bring their own biases. They bring, their own projections of what they want things to look like. Power is unevenly distributed, and sometimes power lies in the hands of people who may want to administer things in a way that maybe we disagree with or we don't see alike. And so the important thing then becomes what are the open channels of communication such that there is space to talk about those differences and to really understand what is the end goal of some of these things that are happening. I think that's kind of where I would
I
go with that.
like your response. It's safe and it's good. It's good that I'm talking about these issues with somebody who's probably just arrived in the South African scene. I want to ask you just a simple question. How do you feel about paying to go to church and then being required at church to give offering? I'm not speaking about anyone in particular. I'm just saying there's programming these days where special events or special Sabbaths, there's a requirement that you pay north of a good amount of money. Look, this is part of the church capture things that I'm going to kind of try to address, where it has become, or it has looked as if there is an agenda to commercialize worship, to commercialize, we could say the gospel to an extent. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, because the associations, like who's linked to that resource pool, what is it for? I don't particularly enjoy. And look, I'm going to say something maybe very controversial. They might cancel me for this. It's fine. I don't understand why we would have a situation where there's a dedicated also being the beneficiary of the worship. Never mind.
Yeah, maybe let's
maybe let's bleep that.
Let me jump in.
Yeah.
But I know that the arguments that are often put forward for this, there's some point to logistical expenses, like
sure.
the singers, and it's a double-edged sword, right? Because I've heard arguments that say that if you are a talented singer in the Adventist church, it's best to take your art somewhere else, because the church will just never pay you. They'll never compensate you.
That's true.
They will exploit your talents, your gifts. So there's that argument, and I think there is fairness to that.
There is.
And at the same time, there is the the other side of this where it says that um, the commercialization aspect. So it's like, okay, but how far
Yes,
do we
it's
go
too
with
far.
that? How, because now if you have like multiple organizers who each have their own event that they want to organize, which they want to pay the people who are going to participating in, which then requires
Us
there
to
to be
pay.
a fee on top of that. You know, I do think that there needs to be a layer of control as it relates to just that, even the sheer amount of those things that are happening, because it can easily get out of hand. And so I share that concern with you when I look at sometimes the volume of which these events are coming out. And then for me, so I worked at a foundation.
Sure.
And in this foundation, we had a very strong analysis around equity. And basically the thought there is that in everything that we do, we need to consider the people who are on the margins.
Okay.
Like we cannot prioritize people who already have.
Sure.
We need to be thinking mostly about the people who don't have. Like how can we reach them? How can we bring them in?
Yeah.
And sometimes when I look at these events, these programs, they are for the haves. They're not really for the
definitely.
have-nots. And so that in that way, I have reservations in terms of how can we make this accessible? Like it's all about access, I think, for me at the end of the day. But at the same time, I do have understanding of some of the logistical. But then how can we get creative in terms of how we're pulling resources to make these things possible, but also compensating fairly, you know, the people who are coming to do these programs or who are coming to enrich us with their gifts and talents. So there's a middle ground that I think we need to walk inside of this conversation. But I think right now when I look at how it's happening, I can tell that there isn't really much regulation of
that.
how much and how these things are happening. And then for me, on a personal note, worship is important. It's an integral part of just being a Christian. At the same time, I feel that some of these resources, we really could direct them towards things that can really just help us as people in our daily lives beyond that one-time event that is happening, you know, once a year. There are things that we could, that's why I appreciate things like youth camps, DASA, and STASM programs, because I feel like there are more robust conversations. But I feel like, there needs to be more of that. That can't just be something that's just like at the end of the year, this is what we're going to do. Then we have all these speakers and stuff. But throughout the year, how can we make sure that we are enriching people and not just extracting from them?
To your point, we have you-save pastors at church, local church, the whole year, and then boom, only on Stasa at the end of the year we go, you know, have a Woolworths pastor, for example. I mean, that's how it looks now. You see.
I will say though that the church has played a role in sometimes, I think, giving too much power to pastors, such that now you do have things called Woolworths pastors. You know, that comes because sometimes of I remember in high school there was this term that our headmaster used to use, hero worshipping, where it was almost like there's these figures that become like the center of worship, and so even myself as a student coming up to like from Helderberg, who was then supposed to be coming out into the field, we were always told that, you know, people are going to do this. People,
you're going to be famous.
Yeah, you're going to be famous. You know, there's going to be girls and women who are going to be after you and stuff. There's just like this this saturation of power within the clergy. Which I think sometimes comes back to haunt the church in terms of now how do you sustain this power that you've given to this office or these individuals, because you need to keep feeding that. You need to keep feeding that. And I think maybe there's going to come a point where we need to come to terms and actually like sit down and say, okay, we've been doing this, but now we realize it's not working. So like, how can we redistribute power? How can we, shift priorities and who we're prioritizing? Just like how we are operating as a church movement.
No, I think you answered it beautifully. I think I like the the idea you brought in, because to me, I think I would have sleepless nights thinking about how did we get here, But I think your model of redistribution of
Yeah.
that power, I think it's something that's workable.
Right. No, you're speaking things that I have questioned myself, and
Okay.
even from a distance, even
Yeah,
from
yeah.
I would, because especially now in the age of posters and flyers, you just like you see
What's going on
what's
here?
happening? What's happening? And I think I don't know. There was a time where I actually stopped preaching for I think for a period of up to 4 years.
Really, tell me about that, because this is really about you.
But that was it. It's part of the journey, right? Like,
Ah.
I think sometimes when you, especially for someone like me who started very early preaching and just like being invited to different spaces, there came a time where I sat down with myself and realized, and just stopped and realized that, there's nothing new that I'm saying here. Like, there's nothing different. I feel like I'm repeating myself.
Sure.
And yes, it's exciting when you're going to preach and you have everyone excited and then this. But then what? I think I even made a post about it. Like, and then what after that? And I think this is what also led to my career change, where I was like, okay, I think I need to be focusing more now on like how can I tangibly have impact in my community. Like when you talk about philanthropy, community development, entrepreneurship, like those are things that bring like a tangible shift in people's lives and in the resources that they have at their disposal to forge a better life for themselves. But that doesn't negate the fact that, you can share God with them. And so sharing the gospel became less of like an abstract thing that I just share when I'm up front speaking, but it became something I really want to embody and live. And so I became just even uncomfortable within my own self about how I was going with things, and I told myself, you know what, just let's take a step back and just wait for God to impress something new as a message, because I'm like, there has to be something more. This can't be where it ends. It can't just be with the amens and all the things and the plaudits and all the powerful seminar. There has to be something deeper, something more that will really shift things. Like when we talk about moving the needle around, just like even and I had this idea, I'm sort of rambling now, but I had this idea that I hope that at some point in our churches, there will be a bit of data integration into just like surveying how much change is this church actually making. Like survey people 6 months at a time. Now measure the state of happiness, fulfillment in their lives, and have them consistently attend this church for that period of time, and see, is this doing anything? Is this helping in any way? And I know there's various factors, not just church. There's many things that impacts the person's quality of life. But then, what is the church's role in that, and how is the church really empowering people to be successful even in the things that they do outside of church? So I'm on that journey still of just trying to think deeper about what does it mean to be part of a church community? What is a church community supposed to do for its members? Because members are already doing so much into tithing, time, all the talents that we will always talk about. But the church also needs to give back more than just a Woolworths pastor or your favorite group singing for you. There needs to be more tangible, I think, outcomes.
Sure, man. I think this conversation has been healing for me. You have no idea. We're a podcast, right? We're the Advent Pod SA. I'm not talking about ourselves here, but I've realized that, to your point, sometimes the church is not willing to participate in things they don't understand, which is fair actually. And what you mentioned, like the logistics and things like that, things that need resources to be able to push this thing. We sometimes are met with a cold hand, like a really cold hand. To someone's imagination, this is all happening at zero cost. And you get to the church space, and the expectation is to deliver all of this at nil cost. And that, to me, I think also the experience of the musicians is probably the same. where for a long time they have been undermined exploited. Fair. And we had a conversation with one very powerful arranger of our Adventist era. Yeah. The doctor himself, Dr. Moshogi. And in a conversation much earlier in our journey, we had the chat about the fact that there are people in the other Christian spaces who resource their musicians, who push resources into them having production studios, having the equipment they need, having everything they need to succeed and become even, globally or nationally recognized as quality gospel musicians, whereas the church doesn't pull the same amount of weight in that regard. The members of the group have to, in and of themselves, see to it that they find other means of sustaining this thing, as opposed to the church saying, hey, we see this, we see this talent here. How can we create a space where, for example, just have an Adventist studio where everybody, just on schedule, can come and record? It's not difficult. But anyway, that I digress.
No, you're absolutely right. I think that it's, and I'm encouraged, just commenting on just like the recent session that we had in the conference here.
Yes.
I was encouraged to see the outcome of that in terms of just like the number of young people that I'm seeing being integrated into those spaces. And I'm hopeful that, they will bring that youthful new energy in terms of just like thinking creatively about like how can, and I think sometimes I've noticed in church we're afraid of creativity because we associate that somehow with you're doing too much, now you're deviating. It's almost like there's this box that you always need to be fitting in, and as soon as you want to explore what's outside, as soon as you're just not even thinking within a box, it's almost as if you've lost your way. Sometimes I lament how much it seems like we are afraid of excellence. Like we celebrate mediocrity. We are so comfortable in that, and we don't want to, to grow, to really challenge ourselves to be the best. We talk a lot about being the heads and not the tails, but it's something that we don't really see that much. And I think that, but then the potential is there. Like the singers, like the Adventist Church has some of the best singers I've ever heard in any space.
Yeah.
And there is a reason why even with some of these popular pop singers, their origins were in church.
Indeed.
And so the talent is there, but then it's I don't think it's being activated, and it lies both in the hands of the youth to find agency to really push their ideas forward. And I'm saying that even as a challenge now to Advent Pod, but you've got something really groundbreaking happening here that I think has the potential. I'm sure you're already even starting to see that in terms of the reach you're having in your audience. But this is a great creative space that can be a powerful vehicle for storytelling, for celebrating the success of our, fellow brothers and sisters who are really making it out there. They're industry leaders within the church who we don't know their stories because there is no vehicle to share that. It doesn't have to be that always when we meet for these things that we are opening our Bibles to. I think sometimes we need to be talking about how we're living the Bible. How we're living, the influence that we saw Christ having in his day, and how in our own lanes, in our different lanes, we are, finding success in that way. So I'm really encouraged to see that this is a developing, medium, and I hope that it will continue sharing powerful stories of just people who are leading their industries, but also we sit with them in the pews sometimes without even realizing or knowing.
No, definitely, and I've met a few of them. And from meeting a few of them, I've realized, wow, we just never knew. And that's part of the kind of your initiative in this, to say plow back into the community now, and help young entrepreneurs or help young people see some form of success also in their lives. This has been a groundbreaking episode.
So that's I think there's a question that we had there about just like my interest now. That's my interest now. I think
what are you
I've gone beyond the pulpit.
Oh yes.
Beyond preaching. I am a passionate preacher. I think that's something that was a gift from me clearly early on, and it's something that I feel passionate about doing. But now I'm more so, it's like, okay, beyond that, what is it that we can do to continue to support people's struggles, people's journeys, and how can we celebrate people's accomplishments? How can we build a culture of entrepreneurship within the church, where people feel empowered to think creatively, knowing that there is going to be support for
From
them.
the church,
That's and I think working in philanthropy for the past 4.5 years or so is what really imprinted that in me, that there is no reason why there cannot be a model in which we pull resources together to really uplift, especially those who are on the margins. It's not that they're on the margins because they're lazy or they're less than, but some people really just need that faith of a community that's going to invest in them to get where they need to be. So those are my interests now: community development. You know, one relationship at a time, through authentic relationship building. Like really powerful things can come out of that. Truly seeing people, empathy, radical empathy, where it goes beyond just sympathizing with people's conditions or situations, but thinking, what can we do? We are a community of believers. We say, what can we do for each other? What can we do for those who don't believe? Not with any agenda that they must come to our church, but how can we go to them and truly embody the love that we saw Jesus in the Bible demonstrating to the people that he lived with. We need to be that kind of movement that's responsive and proactive within its social context.
So any last words for somebody who's a young person, probably silently struggling with the desires they might have, struggling with doubt or even pressure, either financial or intellectual pressure, you know, to succeed at varsity or in the workspace, things like that. Where should they locate themselves in this context?
What I would say, and I'm drawing this reflection even from my own experience, right? As someone who went through and continues to go through, because there's never a time where you don't go through things.
Exactly.
You get breaks to breathe here and there, but we are all in this stuff trying to figure out. There's a funny thing that someone once said, we're all doing life for the first time. So you know, we mess up every time. And I think that's a sobering thought for me. It's that God knows. God, you're not alone. I think that many times we feel that we need to hide and go make ourselves better there somewhere so that God can accept us. You know, we want to go and improve ourselves so that we can, you know, be worthy of God's love. But God loves you. God loves us either way, anyway, unconditionally. And I think that it is that love that helps us break through some of the barriers that we face. It's not punishment. It's not, he doesn't punish us to obedience, but he loves us to obedience. So even as you're struggling with those addictions, you know, with those desires, with the depression and the anxiety, God is there, and he's not afraid of your doubting. He's not afraid of your questioning. He's not afraid of your anger as well, and lack of understanding of what he may be doing. But I think that one thing you always need to get to now sit with is the fact that it's his doing. There's not. We talk a lot about how God will never give you something that's beyond your power. So when you face something that feels like it is, instead of praying, why me, or why is this happening? You know, ask him frankly, like, what is it that you are doing trying to do in my life through this situation, through this problem, through this addiction that I can't seem to escape? What lesson are you trying to teach me? What character are you trying to develop within me? And keep just reaffirming yourself. That the worst thing you can do, especially when you're struggling, is to also beat yourself up about the fact that you're struggling. I think validate the fact that I am human. I am human. I have a human body, but I also have a God who loves me, and he's working on me. He's working on me in his own way, in his own time. And surely at the end of that, I'll be okay. I recently preached a sermon at Calvin, Conversations in the Dark. in the darkness is usually where we find our breakthroughs.
Indeed.
And so see that, find God in your darkness, and then you'll see the breakthroughs that you don't even have to do for yourself, but God will manifest in your life. So I'd share that as a message of encouragement to anyone who may be feeling stuck or in the dark in whatever they're going through in their lives.
And that's really encouraging. Beloved, we've come to the end of the episode. Thank you for staying this long. This has been the Advent Pod SA, a timely voice indeed, and we hope that you subscribe, you like the video, and you can comment on the things that we've spoken about. Do comment with grace, by the way. And obviously share this video with somebody who you think will enjoy it. From us, thank you.